Welcome, everybody. Great to see so many of you interested and invested in music futures and music careers. I'm not going to give you my life story or anything, but I'm Tony Rigg. What do I do? Well, I wear lots of hats. One of them I'm wearing today is I'm a music industry lead for the University of Lancashire, where we are. One of the things that the Lancashire Music Association does, as do many of the other organisations like More Music, based in Morecambe, is bring people together and collaborate and work together so we can amplify, see what I did there, Darren? Amplify our impact. Today has been supported by Sound City. Sound City is a Liverpool-based organisation. They do lots of conferences. There's a brilliant thing called Sound City Liverpool, where they have loads of events and loads of talking bits where you can sort of get industry insight. So our good friends at Sound City have supported this event. Supporting Sound City for this event and us is Arts Council England. So that's one of the funders that I mentioned. University of Lancashire, I've already mentioned. Welcome. Also, Lancashire County Council are supporting the Lancashire Music Association. Lancashire Music Hub, so that's a body that works with young people and education. And we've got Darren here from More Music, who leads on the Amplify initiative, which is about the youth voice for music and understanding music education better and shaping that in our county. We're going to hear more from them in a little while. So we've created a little window for you to hear about, from a couple of the young, brilliant people on Amplify. Music Managers Forum. So Megan, who we'll be introducing to very shortly, is a member of the Music Managers Forum. And that's like a national organisation that supports and works with and is a voice for music managers. Also, can I thank James as well, who's doing the tech for us today, and Sarah and Sean, who have been helping with the management of the event. And I'll thank in advance, because I'll probably forget later, all our wonderful speakers who have come today. Alex O'Toole from Arts Lancashire here is supporting us as well. Thank you, Alex, wherever you are. In essence, what are we doing today? Well, this is about... you may or may not know, but in Lancashire, one of the things that we don't have many of is people working in management roles. So, being a music manager, the idea that somebody can work with creative talent and amplify and help capture economic value, help it become a career, that's an important idea. And it's a kind of foreground, creative people like to be creative. I'm sure there's a lot of creative people in here who like to make music. It feeds our soul, doesn't it? The ability to create and express ourselves. But for this to become, a serious career venture, and for you to be able to literally love your job and love what you do, there are things that need to be wrapped around it, which might not be quite as exciting, though I will say I do love a good spreadsheet every now and again. But the management stuff, the things that you have to wrap around, you even if you're DIYing your own career, or maybe there's people in here who might say, do you know what, I think I could be a manager. I think I love, I might be a musician, but actually I know a great band I want to manage. So there's all of, it's bringing into the foreground that, as well as being brilliant and creative, if you add to that, things like management and promotion and planning, they might sound a bit dull, but they're the things that transform this activity into professional activity. Our host today is Will Wolstenholme from BBC Introducing, so he'll be doing the teasing information out of our speakers. Our keynote is an in-conversation with Megan Burns, who's fascinating, and I'm sure you'll know a lot more about Megan. I'll save that, I'm not going to tell you. And then we have a panel round table, which is a bit of talking with some people who have some very useful, helpful insights about their experience and roles in the management-y stuff. Then we'll take a break. Then we'll bring Amplify on to tell you a little bit about Amplify Youth Voice. And then we'll be doing some group stuff, which basically is, you know, one of the most important things, arguably the most important thing, is understanding our community, understanding what people need, you know, how people see the industry. You know, it helps us unpick how we make, how we can support, basically. And that's the intention, you know, to try and help people to work together to, you know, so we can grow together, you know, this industry and our ecosystems. So we're going to be asking you some questions, and we're going to be using this thing called Slido. So there'll be a barcode. If you don't have a phone with you and you can't access the barcode, we'll get some paper and pens. Please make a note of the questions, and we'll gather your feedback off you in an analog way. I'm going to ask Will and Megan to join us up here for our first. Can we maybe have a round of applause?
My name is Will. I present a radio show for BBC Radio Lancashire called BBC Introducing. You may have heard of it. You don't have to have, it's fine. We're going to have a conversation with someone called Megan Burns. This is Megan. She started a career off working in films, performed in Danny Boyle's iconic 28 Days Later, among others. She then released an album with Island Records under the artistic pseudonym Betty Curse before her career turned to management, and that's what we're going to talk about. She's specialised in managing artists in metal, and she currently manages a band based in Iceland, which is something I'm very keen to learn about. So we're going to hear Megan's story over the next 20 minutes or so. And we're going to learn how she discovered why management was the right thing for her. Hopefully, that's the plan anyway. We'll see where it goes. So I've kind of given a very brief potted history of your career there for everyone to think about. So you started in film, you released an album as a recording artist, and now you're in management. So could you fill in the blanks there without giving us 20 years?
Yeah. So I started in film, and that was completely by accident. I used to go to a drama class because I was a shy child. So my nan thought the best thing to do was stick me on a stage to overcome that, which worked. But the whole time that I was acting, I was just a massive music fan. Like, I remember when I was shooting 28 Days Later, Slipknot's Iowa came out, and I made my chauffeur like pull up to the Virgin record, the album Iowa.
The Slipknot album.
The Slipknot album.
Okay.
And I asked him to pull over so I could run into Virgin to pick up the record before I was driven to set. And then we listened to it all the way to set, which I'm sure he was thrilled about, but you know, it is where it is. So I've just loved music. I would spend a lot of my earnings from the films in HMV and record stores. I just bought every music magazine available. I'd have to get them ordered into the local newsagents because they didn't necessarily stock Kerrang or Melody Maker or The Enemy. And then I signed up to street teams, which I don't think they have street teams nowadays, do they?
What is
a street team is? So a street team was basically record labels would bring in a third party, and they basically would send out promotional materials to fans, and you would have to go and put stickers up or posters up or sell merchandise at a gig on behalf of an artist in exchange for free tickets. So obviously, it's like, I was like, sign me up.
Free stuff.
Free stuff.
Yeah.
So through doing that, I got to know a lot of artists, and I would always make sure to introduce myself and talk to them about their record and like make sure they knew how much I loved them and I was passionate about it. And I would often get invited to secret shows like album launches and stuff. One of those was for the 80s Matchbox Beeline disaster, and that was in London. And it was at that gig I met a guy called Steve Ludwin, and he came up to me and asked me if I could sing. And I think I was 17 at the time.
Had you done much singing before that?
No,
Nothing at all?
never.
Right.
And
So it was exclusive to the shower and the car then?
yeah,
At that point, right.
yeah. Even the shower in the car, I was a bit shy of myself, you know. But I was asked the question and I just said yes, because I wanted to see where this was going. I was like, he's either a creep or he might be, you know, inviting me for more free stuff. Like we're at a gig. I clocked that he had a AAA pass. So I was like, oh, he must be doing something with the band or within the industry. So it transpired that his question was genuine. He wasn't a weirdo. He took me and my friends to the after party, and he told me about a project that he was wanting to get off the ground. And basically, he wanted to do a female-fronted rock metal act that was accessible to younger people,
Right.
as a sort of bridge from, I don't know, like pop music through to metal.
I guess we're right in the heart of like the new metal moment as well in this timeline, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Just sort of mid 2000s.
Yeah, so this was around 2004, I think I met him. And he told me that he had a development deal with Universal, which a development deal is when a record company is interested in a project. And so they'll offer X amount of money for you to go and record some demos. And that is then on the basis that they get like first refusal. So if they like the record, they will sign you. If they're not into it, then you're free to go and approach more labels. So having never sang before, I was a little bit nervous because I thought, what have I got myself into now? But the following day I went to visit him and he got his guitar out and started playing me some songs that he'd been writing, and I just sang along. I just made it up as I was going along, and for some reason he liked it, and that began our writing partnership. So because I couldn't play any instruments, he would write the music and then I would go in and spill my teenage angst guts over the guitar music. And yeah, we recorded the demos and we got signed off the back of that.
To Ireland?
To Ireland, yeah. To Ireland Universal. Obviously, it was a dream come true. I was 17, but because I was 17, I couldn't sign the contract myself. I had to go through a publishing. It was not publishing, it was a production contract. So basically, Steve Ludwin, he signed on behalf because he was a grown-up and I was still underage. And yeah, so obviously I just went with it. I was so excited. I got to share a record label with like some of my favorite artists. And I thought everything was great. We did a bunch of tours and then, yeah, it came to an end before we actually released the album. Although technically they released the album, but again, we're going back to 2006, 2007. So services like Spotify, Apple Music, they were still very much in the infant stages. People were still buying physical.
I was about to say, this is kind of before even iTunes really took off, isn't it?
Yeah. So even though digital was a thing, it wasn't a thing, you know? So a physical product was key. And basically they released my record online and then... Online only? Online only.
Right.
And then dropped us. And they could drop us on the basis that technically they released the album. So they never physically released it.
Right.
So after about 3-4 years of like solid work, that was it.
That was that.
Yeah. So I came out of that experience quite cynical, you could say.
I bet. I mean, obviously today's all about management to an extent. That's the focus of today. And I'm guessing that all of your subsequent experiences and the handlings you've had with artists has all been framed by that, well, quite objectively negative experience.
Yeah. No, definitely. It definitely shaped me into how I approach management. in ways I learned such valuable lessons. I mean, I'm so grateful, like my day-to-day manager when I was an artist, like she was an absolute hero. Like she saw me through some like really difficult times. Like she was so supportive and she went above and beyond. Like she became like my London mum, I used to call it, because like she really looked after me. And that was the one thing that when I finished making music, I didn't feel cynical about. I was just like, I'd love to do that. I would love to be a Lou. Like,
so she inspired you to an extent.
Yeah. And I mean, I just carried on being involved in the music scene. I'd moved to London at this point. And so through the band, I'd made a lot of industry contacts, like a lot of journalists, a lot of promoters, label people, other bands. And so they became my friend group. So what I would then start to do is when I would go to a gig and see a band that I really loved, I would tell those people about it. I would tell a journalist, you need to check these out. Or I would tell a record label or another manager. And I was doing that out of pure love for the art. I wasn't expecting anything from it. I didn't get any payment to do it. I just really enjoyed seeing or trying to get people to the next stage and like making as many people as possible hear something that I'd completely fallen in love with. So I moved back up to Liverpool, well, Ormskirk.
Yeah.
That was around 2012. And a friend of mine had set up a management company to primarily look after one artist that he was already managing, but he wanted to set up something in the Northwest. And he asked if I would be interested in coming on board as a manager. So at this point, we're talking like 2015 or something. Mm-hmm. Again, I'd never done management before, but just like say, I was like, yeah, I can do that. Like, why not? Like,
you say you never done management before. A lot of the focus of to the skills that we're hoping to uncover is self-management skills, and I guess thinking about the idea of music management as not just a basically nice way of delivering tough luck, which is when we think about the word management, we think about management talk and we have very boardroomy conceptions of it. But you'll have developed a lot of skills through that time, particularly so young. Your experiences, you'll have developed a skill set. You talked about like burrowing yourself in that London scene and making yourself a part of it and learning off other artists and people in the industry and becoming one of the people in it. That will have taken management skills, won't it?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like I didn't realize that what I was doing was sort of like some of the basics of what a manager does. I was just trying to spread the word of something that I loved. And so when it was explained to me, actually, the only difference is there's a bit more business and strategy involved. But essentially, it's about spreading the word. It's about putting the artist in the hands of the right team. It's about identifying where the artist should be and how to get there.
And a lot of the time, artists won't necessarily have that perspective themselves, will they?
No. And that's it, because it's like a lot of artists, I don't think understand what the manager does. I think they just think, oh, we need a manager. But then they realize actually, right now we don't need a manager, or we don't actually want a manager. I think you have to want to be managed, and there has to be like, you have to really trust the person that you bring on board to manage you, because essentially it's like handing over your child to a stranger and being like, yeah, do what you will. So I mean, on paper, they say that management is like business and strategy, and that is a lot to do with it. But I feel a lot of it is also to do with creative direction these days.
Can you explain what that is? Somebody might not have heard that phrase before.
Yeah, so if an artist is about to start an album campaign, or maybe, that's in the new, but it's about It's about figuring out what your brand identity is.
So the world around the music.
Yeah. So it's about how you present yourself. It's about how you want to present your music. It's about, do you want to collaborate with other artists? If so, are they the correct artists for you to be associating with? How does your world evolve and develop?
We're talking about the sort of outside perspective that can enable an artist to understand the imagery that they associate with their music, the clothes they wear, the words they use, how they post, how regularly they do that, all of their activity.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, being in a band should always be music first. But to truly develop and to break through and become successful, you have to be very savvy about what your brand is. And I hate using the word brand because it just makes it sound really corporate. But if you have something instantly recognizable, even down to your logo, it helps to create that audience because it's like a visual signifier to a fan. That's what I like, you know? Does that make sense? Am I just talking?
That makes sense.
Yeah. And it also helps to position you within the market. It's like whenever I start to work with an artist, I ask them to write a wish list. So that wish list is name bands, producers, brands, like clothing brands even, that you like, and put them in order of attainable now, attainable in the next 3 years, and like ultimate goal. And then
like a bucket list.
Yeah. And then from that, I can take a look at it and go, okay, who's going to be the right team to work with these? And how are we going to make these dreams possible? Like, how are we going to make this work? And so I then take it upon myself to put that music in the hands of those people. It's like, you know, there might be someone in my network who actually manages the artist on the pipe dream, you know, like the absolute, and I'll be like, oh, you know, I know they're not quite ready now, but like, just keep these guys in mind. And like, if an opportunity comes up, like, just let me know. It could just be they already know someone in one of the bands. And so I say to them, it's like, well, rather than me going and doing a formal approach, why don't you ask them, like, have they got a tour coming up? Like, you know, do you want to ask them if they want to do a guest vocal on your record? And I think that's why there needs to be so much trust between an artist and a manager, because I have to have faith that they're doing their share of things, but then they also have to have faith that how I'm communicating with people is a good reflection of their brand.
Right. So each of your work reflects the others.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you talked about kind of how you talked about like when an artist should know whether or not they are kind of ready for management. Do you think that will mean different things to different managers in a way? Because I think every artist manager that I've ever spoken to has had clearly quite a very different kind of technique of doing things, and you kind of have to find your own method, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are some managers who practice something that I'm really quite opposed to, which is they will take on an artist on a retainer basis. So they will approach a band and be like, I really love your music, let me manage you, but it's going to cost you £100 a month. And to some bands, like, that sounds great because it's like, oh yeah, like, we've got a manager, like, it's going to be like open so many doors for us, like, it's great, and it's only costing us £100 a month. Whereas how I view that is, if you're already getting paid £100 a month, why would you bother trying to like push a little baby band? Because it's going to take so much work. It's like there's so much knocking on doors. Everyone is so data driven these days that if I rock up with a band that's got like 500 followers on Instagram and like 34 plays on Spotify, it's going to be very difficult for me to like
kill.
Yeah. And so if I chose to work with that band, I'm going to have that passion, and I'm not going to expect to be paid, because if a band is in that position, they're not going to be making money from music. So I'm not going to commission against nothing. And I think if you're working with a manager who's already getting paid £100 a month, maybe they just don't want to send an extra 12 emails that week. But it doesn't matter because they're getting paid
Still
anyway.
getting paid.
Yeah.
So in that case, bit of, potentially quite a personal question. Do you get paid on a commission basis, or how does it work?
Yeah. So basically, each manager's different. A lot of managers will commission 20% across everything.
So whatever you're involved with that they end up receiving or achieving, to be 20% of that will go to you.
So that's against like live fees, merchandise sales, some take off publishing, like the PRS income. My approach to it is a little bit different. Because most of the bands that I work with or have worked with are independent, and within the metal scene, it's like all of my artists have like day jobs, you know, no one is sat comfortable just making music and living the dream.
Which is
It's
something
like,
people ought to be aware of more, really, that like a lot of the artists that you probably listen to, like they're not just touring musicians. Like there are some pretty big artists out there who have very normal jobs alongside it.
Yeah. No, I think most now as well. It's like,
it's like the bigger and bigger. I mean, it's crazy now. You could have like a top 10 album and still be working in a pub or something.
Yeah, it's like people who've had like #1 albums. It's like they're still very much working. But yeah, it's like the way I view things is if I'm expecting them to go on tour for a month, that's them having to take a month off work. It's like life doesn't just stop because they've decided to go on tour. They still need to pay bills, like they still need to pay their rent. So when they go on a tour, you know, I'm lucky because my bands get paid pretty good fees. So it's very rare that this happens. But the expense and the cost of touring is so high at the minute because to put on a successful show, when you get to a certain level, you need to start paying for crew. So you need to start paying for a sound engineer, a tour manager, a driver.
So the bill gets high very quickly.
And so what seems like a great amount of money from show fees suddenly starts to dwindle. So then you rely very heavily on merchandise sales to get by. And what happens is, as the manager, I have to put together the tour budget. I have to do all the accounting. I have to make sure that the tours make sense. And sometimes things happen that will cost more money. So anyway, I'm rambling on,
No,
but basically it's expensive to tour and people have bills to pay. So in the past, what's happened is I've said I won't take my commission because on a tour.
Right.
Because even
Is that controversial before you continue?
I don't think it's that controversial. I think it depends on the manager. It's like, I know a lot of managers. Basically, the reason I would do that is because I want to make sure that my artist's well-being is looked after. And so if that means they come off tour, I always like to make sure that they've got at least €2,000 each in their pocket because that covers their bills and that covers their expenses. If after that €2,000, there's not enough for my commission, I'll either take a cut, like I'll take 5% instead of 15%, or I will just waive it. And I saw that eyebrow wave because you're like, what?
Yeah.
But
well, it's just like you got to eat food as well, haven't you?
You do. But I think you would find that it happens a lot with managers, which is why it's a hard job, because it can be very thankless at times. It's like you're not the one getting on stage, but you're the one who's put them on the stage.
Yeah, so you don't get any credit for the good stuff, but you get blamed for the bad stuff. You should still think about doing it.
No, you should, because it is so rewarding. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, of course.
But I think, I mean, you know, even when I'm like, because I work with the MMF and I'm a member of the MMF, and my big break as a manager was like being a part of their accelerator program, which was bringing promising managers from like across the UK, putting them all in a room and developing them and actually giving them financial backing to become sustainable. So it's like a grant that I was awarded. And the reason they did that is because they recognize that one of the issues in the music industry is managers are often severely underpaid for the amount of work that they do. I mean, I have a part-time role in a performing arts school, just like helping with the A&R side of things in the music department. And that is because I also have a daughter and a household to run. So I can't rely on commissions from tours. If perhaps I didn't have the child and I could just work solely on music, I might be able to just do the music. But again, you're very lucky if you get in that position as a manager. I know that most managers that I know also have a side hustle of sorts. And that's the thing, I think, across the board. It's like all the hard work, but you're often the last person to eat at the table.
I bet. Well, it sounds tough, but you clearly love it. You can tell from everything you're saying. I'm just going to ask you one more question. I think we are basically at the end of our time for this conversation. We probably could have spoken for twice the time, to be honest. So you hear stories, I guess, certain sorts of music, folklore and mythology about a group of friends at, I don't know, 17, 18, and one of them doesn't play an instrument, so they end up being the manager. Obviously, 9 times out of 10, that lasts for a fortnight, but that 10th time, or the 100th, they might end up being the manager right the way through and form a whole career on it. There are lots of famous cases of that happening. But I would be interested to know, like, because obviously there are a lot of young people in the room today. I suppose the point of today is about considering careers in music that you might not have thought about, and music management or managing artists might be something that you like the idea of from this conversation. But how kind of matured and aware of the industry and wise do you think someone has to be to start being an artist manager? Because if you're 17, like, realistically, how much do you know?
I mean, I don't know if it's about maturity. It's like I always go back to it, but I think it's about passion. Because like I say, it's like it can be like an incredibly thankless job. And there is a lot of knocking on closed doors. There's lots of emails that you send out that go ignored. And the only thing that will keep you interested in doing it is the passion for it. And there's nothing better than receiving an iPhone demo of a track that you see all the way through to, like, you know, release, and like seeing your artist like featured in like the magazines that you used to buy as a kid and thinking, I helped to get them there. And it's like, yeah. I mean, despite me not writing music anymore or acting, it's like I still feel very creative, and it's like I feel rewarded still being involved in a creative process. And I'm also very thankful that I don't have to get on the stage myself and sing the songs, because no one needs to see or hear that anymore. So yeah, like,
it's a way of being part of it without having to be able to play.
Yeah, and I think your point about the maturity, I mean, if you're 17 and you absolutely love a band, or it's your friend's band, it's like, just reach out to like another manager or reach out to a label, and someone will happily like share their wisdom, or you might even find yourself a mentor just through reaching out. And I think you grow with the band. Like, as the band grows, it's like you will grow. And it's like, I mean, the MMF, it's like, if you had an interest in management and you signed up to the MMF, there are so many resources, like tour budgeting spreadsheets, like draft contracts. There's initiatives, like I say, for like funding, and there's a whole list of managers that you can reach out to and just be like, oh, I'm working on this, or I really want to do this. And it's like, you will get a response, because I think managers just love talking about their artists, and they love encouraging other people to do the same. And I think it's, just like stick with your passion, and just don't take no for an answer.
Great. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. Cool. We're going to open up the discussion now. Thank you very much, Megan. You're free to leave the stage area. Great. We're going to hear from a variety of voices. I'm hoping that we'll get a big range of perspectives that will kind of that will offer you a range of possibilities for how a career might make sense for you and what skills you might want to nurture to make that happen. So this will be about, again, a bit about self-management and what skills that involves, both as an artist and in other musical careers. And what it takes to pursue a career in music management. So, calling to the stage, Ramin Bostan of Austereo, Dan Jones from PRS, Esme O'Keefe from Modern Sky, and welcoming back Tony Rigg from the Lancashire Music Association, and much else. You should probably all explain who you are and what you do, and maybe as briefly as possible what organisations you are representing here today, just so we've got as quickly as possible a little picture of the range of voices. Tim, we've already heard from you. Should we go to you, Esme?
Hello, yeah, it's working.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Esme. I'm from a independent record label called Modern Sky. I'm the label manager there. And Modern Sky, yeah, is an independent record label based in Liverpool. It's been running for about 9 years now, so we've got a 10th year next year. And we mostly work with kind of indie alternative music, but we are starting to branch out into other areas hopefully soon. So yeah, that's me.
You manage a couple of bands as well, don't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, one of my bands has just decided to take a break.
Oh, right.
But yeah,
You manage a band then?
Yeah. So I'm managing an artist called Hannah Morgan as well on the side of my day-to-day role. So yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ramin Bostan. I run a small label called Austereo. Pretty genre agnostic. We work with all types of music, very international roster as well. We've had a bit of a specialism on Southeast Asian markets actually since we launched. And my role day to day is a lot of A&R stuff, so a lot of working directly with the artists, planning the releases, planning the marketing campaigns as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Dan Jones. I work for an organisation called PRS Music, where I'm a writer relationship manager there. If you don't know who PRS Music are, it's an organisation that represents the rights of songwriters, composers, and music publishers in the UK and all around the world. Essentially, we make sure they're paid whenever their music is played on TV, radio, streamed, downloaded, played live.
Great. Getting the selfie, Tony, before we start.
Always.
I'll start with you, Dan. Was Dan's mic loud enough? I couldn't really hear it that clearly. Could you all hear Dan okay?
Hello.
Yeah, that's better. Great. A lot of what you do, Dan, is you come to things like this and you explain to young people and ambitious music types at the very beginning of their career what PRS is and how it can benefit them. And I always get the impression whenever I hear you talk about it that you're really determined that people with ambitions for a career in music take initiative and don't kind of sit around and wait for stuff to happen for them. Is that right?
Yeah, that's very true.
Could you kind of give me an idea of what sort of skills you think artists should be trying to develop really early on, kind of beyond the music bit, so they can put themselves in as strong a position as possible to self-manage, if you will?
Yeah, I'm going to give an answer that's not why people get involved in music. So I meet so many amazing creative people during my day job who are some of the worst business details people you'll ever meet. They've got no interest in basically doing the basics to make sure they get paid. So my job is basically trying to encourage them to do those basics to get paid. So if you write songs with people, get it documented, who wrote that song, so you don't argue with them a few years down the line when money starts getting involved. Do the basics, like making sure you register all your songs with PRS Music if you're a member, so you can make sure you get paid. So I had a call with quite a big artist earlier this week, and they've never ever reported any of their live shows to us. So that's thousands of pounds that they've missed out on because they didn't understand the basics, or they maybe understood it, they just had no inclination to do that. If that's not you, if there's someone in a band that is more of a details person, or you work with some amazing manager like Megan, then make sure they're kind of doing the basics for you. It's not why people get involved in music, but it's how you can basically make a career in music. I meet lots of terrible bands who I don't personally like, but they are on top of their admin. They understand it all, and they're getting royalties coming through because they're doing the basics right, even if their music sucks.
Is it surprising to you that artists can get to that level without being so on top of stuff?
It did initially surprise me, but the amount of people...
It's worn off.
Yeah, the amount of people I meet like that, no, it doesn't amaze me.
I see. And do you think artists are aware enough early on of how important it is to kind of really be hot on the potential income earners like PRS?
Probably not, but I do see...
I guess you wouldn't be here, would you? If
No, I probably wouldn't have a job if people understood it all properly.
So you actually rely on people not knowing, I guess.
No, but there are like great universities. So like Tony gets me in to speak to students. Spirit Studios get me in to speak to their students. So there are a lot of people who are going through the traditional educational route that are aware. But then if people fall out those cracks, they're not carrying on to school. They're not going to university. They don't have people around them that know it. Then yeah, they can definitely slip through the cracks. And also a lot of the advice you can look for online is American advice written by Americans, YouTube videos by Americans, and a lot of what they say just isn't applicable for the rest of the world, particularly in the UK. So you can be trying to educate yourself, but you will get wrong information if you rely on the internet a lot of times.
Ramin, let's talk to you for a bit, if that's okay. You mentioned a stereo. You work with artists all over the world, don't you? So what sort of experience do you have of artists and I guess how they deal with being artists? Because Esme, you're working with artists at quite an early stage in their career. Dan mentioned artists at a very far along progress point with obviously PRS involves basically everyone you've ever heard. So Ed Sheeran and Coldplay and all the huge acts that you'll listen to with millions of monthly listeners on Spotify, they all use PRS as well. But from the conversation that we had earlier before we came on stage, I get the impression that the music world you're in is quite different to what people potentially expect.
I think there's a huge number of challenges for artists across the spectrum, across territories. I think working with international acts and seeing how audiences engage with artists is quite interesting. I think is a big can be a big obstacle for people in certain territories, particularly for female artists. Actually, in some territories, I think that some of the scrutiny and potentially, I daren't say criticism necessarily, but I think it's very different to what one might see in the UK, for instance, or in the USA. I think that still exists, but perhaps it's amplified in other places as well. I think that working with artists is a real joy, and sometimes I think that anecdotally, some of the things that I hear from the artists that I work with, experiences with previous labels, they perhaps haven't necessarily understood how personal the project is to them. And actually, it's very easy for us to sit here in a planning meeting or in a boardroom setting and be like, oh, well, they just need to post more TikToks and, you know, just do this dance or whatever that we want you to do and you'll go viral. It's very easy to be flippant about it, but actually I think you have to keep central to the conversation all the time that this person, it's very much a personal project to them and they're the face of it. And it's easy for you to say, it's much less easy for them to go and action something.
You started things off as a musician yourself, didn't you? So you trained as a musician, and then you mentioned that you recorded and performed as a trumpeter. How early on did you did you get ambitions to work in the industry itself rather than as a musician?
The 460th iteration of Mustang Sally was enough to make me want to move into something more 9 to 5, less of piling into the van. Come on, lads, we're off to Coventry today, and oh, wonderful. No, it's great fun playing music. Tony, you said earlier it feeds our souls, and it is. And I still play in bands, and but I do it because I love it now, and I don't have to go and play Mustang Sally. I can just say no. Do you know what I mean? I'm all right. But I think that having that perspective, again, sometimes what I hear from artists is that we signed with you not necessarily because the metrics of the deal were better than what we were getting elsewhere, but we signed with you because you've demonstrated to us that you really did listen to the project and really did give it your time and attention. And I always write back to people, irrespective of whether I think this is something I'm going to sign, always write back to people and demonstrate that you've really listened to the music and you've really understood those touch points that they're hitting, as opposed to just going, hey man, I listened and it's dope. Shall we do a deal? You know, it's boring, isn't it?
Do you think people should be more ambitious about pursuing a career for a label or a publisher or a management company, as opposed to, I suppose, when you're 16, 17, 18, you're not necessarily thinking, I want to work in A&R one day. When you get to 25, 26, and you're still interested in music, suddenly that becomes quite an aspirational option. Do you think people should maybe think about it a bit earlier or be more aware of it earlier?
I mean, I don't think I knew it existed at all until I was about 20. Do you know what I mean? I'd kind of always just played trumpet and that was it. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a really, really rewarding. I think it's a very, very tiring job at times, and it can be quite thankless as well, as Megan described. But I just think it's a real privilege, and I just feel very, very lucky every day to be doing it. And I think it's something that you should absolutely be passionate about and just bring joy to every element of it, and really try not to take failures to heart, but to learn from them and just move them into successes as soon as possible. But yeah, absolutely. I think there should be, if anyone has any ambitions like that to move into something working on the industry side, it's not all horrible corporate stuff. You know, there's an immense amount of joy there as well.
Well, let's talk to you, Esme. We haven't really heard from you yet. Can you tell us your story? Because you're managing an artist and you're working at a label at quite a young age, really. Like, I think when a lot of people, they think about music industry professionals, they probably still think about black suits and very long boardrooms in London. But that's not you. You're in Liverpool. So can you tell us your story and how you ended up doing this and how early on that ambition emerged?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like I've always enjoyed music. I was always go to gigs and stuff when I was younger. And then I did music tech at college, and that kind of gave me my first insight into more of the business side of things within the music industry. It was quite eye-opening to realize how many jobs there were behind the scenes, because I have played instruments before and have been a performer, but I hate performing. So I wanted to be part of music, but just not on the stage, essentially. So music business was quite interesting to me as a career path. So I had lots of friends in bands, and I would help them with photography or helping them around releases and stuff on socials. So I was always kind of doing a bit of it, maybe without realizing. And then I went to study at the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts in Liverpool and did the management course there. And that was really amazing and informative, because it just gave me a lot of kind of background knowledge to the industry and all of the different kind of paths that you can take. Whilst I was there, we did a lot of practical projects. So, you know, I started a music magazine with one of my friends, and we would go and interview all the local bands in Liverpool on the scene. And although that started as a project, it's something that we continued, and gave me an insight into what was going on the scene, who was, you know, doing what, who was releasing, who was around, what gigs were people doing. So it was essentially like I sort of, via the magazine, got into A&R and things and scouting bands. And when I did I did a placement at the place that I work now, I essentially just started sending them a lot of different artists, which I was connecting with via the magazine, but hadn't got management or hadn't been signed. And we ended up signing quite a few of the artists that I'd sent through whilst I was on my placement. So afterwards they offered me a bit of a job being a label assistant. And then slowly I've just transitioned into my role now, which is a label manager, but doing a lot of campaign managing and marketing for all of our artists.
You make it sound a very kind of easy and smooth ride.
Yeah.
Just sort of, you follow the path.
It wasn't at all.
You have to have been utterly relentless, I imagine. Because
Yeah.
from my experience of the people I know and what I've seen, obviously being an artist is very competitive, but it's actually very competitive to get roles in the industry anyway. It's not as simple as, I'll do that instead. You have to be tenacious.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about connecting with people and I do think it is that whole thing of who you meet. I think when I was in uni, they had this whole thing about networking and what is networking. Networking is really going to the pub and meeting someone and they put on gigs and then you'd be like, oh, well, I'm working with this band. Can you put them on? It's as simple as just connecting with people and following people on Instagram and seeing what bands are up to and things like that. So I think they make it sound a lot more kind of daunting and scary than it actually is, when really it's kind of connecting with people that have similar interests to you, are doing similar things, and getting part of that creative scene. So for me, just starting that magazine was a great entry point, because sometimes it can be quite daunting to go to an event and just start chatting to people, whereas the magazine kind of gave me the impetus of being able to interview people and connect with them for a reason. So yeah, I don't know if that answers.
That's
question.
great.
Yeah.
To Tony, today was your idea. You wanted to have the management focus with this conversation. So why is management as a phrase and an idea and a concept something that you think people as young as still in sixth form and whatnot should start to be thinking about as a potential career in music?
So, well, I mean, firstly, whilst we might frame it as my idea, it was not really, you know, this was a response to what we were being asked for. And, you know, in conversations with our music people, you know, it became, and through research, it became apparent that we, in terms of our ecology, we don't have very many managers. We
in
have
the county, you mean?
in the county,
So if you look at Lancashire as a place where music is, something it lacks is people who work in management.
Yeah, so I mean, taking out the major metropolitan centres of Liverpool and Manchester, you know, Lancashire is, you know, a significant, you know, it has a significant population, places, people, scenes, you know, music scenes, ecologies. Each place has its own sort of ecosystem. But one of the things that we identified that we don't have very much of is the people in role. So we have Megan in Ormskirk is a great example. But there's relatively few people who are looking at how you can convert that creativity into economic value. Right. And to be fair, you know, I'm going to generalize massively here, but you know, very often creative people, you know, we've kind of this has been pointed to, aren't you know, want to be creative and are thinking about the creative stuff.
Don't want to have to think about the PRS forms, for example.
Yeah, but it actually is necessary. So if you want, you know, actually, you know, a good example would be PRS. So if you're writing songs, and there's also PPL if you're playing on recordings and so on. If someone plays your song in a public environment, and that can include you, so you could be doing a gig or a series of gigs, as a PRS member, in essence, the use of that intellectual property or your material generates a royalty. And that royalty, as Dan mentioned, some people, could have generated thousands of pounds in royalties by playing their own material to audiences and don't even know, and to actually access that money to get paid. But that's a good example of a sort of management function, less a function, but more a sort of an activity. So it's about capturing so all the ways you can make money from music.
Yeah.
You kind of, if you're not getting it, if you're not getting paid, and again, it's about, sort of organically getting onto a virtuous cycle where, you have milestones, you have a pathway, a course of action, that's your initiative and your ideas and your creativity can be you can have ideas and make money from them if you organize and manage yourselves correctly.
Let's think about what skills are potentially going to open up those careers. Dan, you've worked for PRS for quite a while now. You've been in the music industry for plenty of time to be able to offer some wisdom on what kind of essential skills it takes from early on for someone to kind of hone and nurture in themselves to pursue a career in music that isn't necessarily as an artist.
I think that makes something really good, like networking. I'm a complete introvert. I hate networking, but I know I have to do it. So if you don't know the answer, speak to somebody who does know the answer. Like, the music industry isn't that big. Everybody kind of tends to know everybody. We were sat on a train and I was emailing people in her office about stuff. So networking, getting to know people, you might feel uncomfortable doing it, but it can be hugely beneficial. So like, I work with people who now work like head of Spotify, head of like Google Play, manage Muse and stuff like that. So if you help people out, if you're nice as well, that always really helps when someone's nice. You remember that and you will be willing to help people later. If someone isn't nice to you, then they might not be so forthcoming with help later down the line. I kind of say networking, just building relationships is really important. Like, you might not have all the answers, but you'll know someone that does know the answers and they can assist you.
Ramin, can you give me an idea of what your kind of day-to-day looks like working for Austereo? Because what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to work out what things you guys do and what skills you have that you could have noticed that you have when you were 16, 17, and having noticed that you could have potentially pursued your career earlier in theory. So it would be good to know like what your day-to-day is like, Ramin, and what skills you use in the conversations that you have with artists and the rest of the industry.
Yeah, so today's Friday, so it's release day. So I'm hiding here from all the artists. No, this morning I was up combing through the editorial playlists and sending some fiery emails out and just making sure that people are getting the support that they deserve, really, for the releases, making sure that all the asset logs were updated. So from a skills point of view, it's organisation. It's being able to make sure you're keeping on top of all those admin-y things so that artists know where the music's being performed, know what successes we've had, know where perhaps we now need to improve. If an artist has been given support, it's about making them aware that and giving them the tools to be able to shout about it. Hey, you've had a Spotify playlist, go and post it on Instagram. You've had this feature in this blog, go and reshare it. They're more likely to give you support later down the line. And I think, on top of that, a lot of contracts, a lot of being aware of how those legal frameworks operate in the music industry.
Is that quite daunting when you join the music industry? Because one thing I've always avoided at all costs is any knowledge of the contracts and whatnot, because I always find it I guess it's quite intimidating when you step into the music industry and you hear about album deals and whatnot. There are lots of horror stories knocking around. So when you first step into your first job that doesn't involve playing trumpet and it involves supporting the people who play trumpet and guitar and whatnot, what's that like?
Yeah, I think you have to be. You said it, Dan. I think that even if you don't know the answer to something, there is someone out there who can help you if you're willing to go and find who that person is. Call them, email them, write in a forum if you're not sure, and use Google. And now we have things like ChatGPT as well, which is handy for knowledge. It's not always correct, so you have to check it. But I think that there are a lot of tools at our disposal to go and learn stuff. Or you can not be daunted and just pretend you know and make loads of mistakes anyway, like us and loads of people do.
Been doing that for years. Esme, one thing we heard from Megan about artist management, and one skill she uses day to day is obviously she gets to use her creativity a lot, and she gets a lot of creative gratification, she told us, out of working with artists on the ground. That's obviously something that you do. How much creative license do you get when you're working as part of Modern Sky, managing artists and looking after their records?
I think it's so dependent on like the artist and the project, because it's not one size fits all in any circumstance. I think we always speak about our artists in the sense of it has to be artist led. I think it's so important now with the way that socials are and social media and the way that artists engage with their fans, that things are authentic, because I think if they're not authentic, that comes across on social media and people aren't going to connect with it in the same way. So that it's always got to have that level of authenticity of coming from the artist. It then depends on what the artist enjoys doing, what they have ideas for, and maybe the bits that they don't like doing. So we've got some artists that, hate posting on socials or aren't very good at coming up with ideas. So we'll go to them and come up with a full list of ideas of why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? And it's all a bit of trial and error. We've got some artists that know exactly who they want to be on socials and how they want to communicate with their fans. So for them, it might just be us supporting with, using our graphic designer to help build assets if they need some help with editing, or adding text to assets for them so they're able to post it if they don't have time.
Just to clarify, when people say assets, they basically mean pictures.
Yeah, pictures or videos. Yeah. So it's just so dependent on the artist. And I think it's nice to work on a case-by-case basis and sort of get to know the artist in depth and understand what they want to get from the project and where they need help. And that's where we come in and help them, bring things to life a little bit more, and maybe connect them with this videographer over here that we feel like could be a good match, or whatever it might be that they feel like they need help with.
Tony talked about Lancashire growing its music kind of network and community and scene. You're based in Liverpool with Modern Sky.
Yeah.
You live in Manchester. So that's two, I guess, like behemoths of music, really.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in those scenes. What do you think in order for the more, I guess, rural corner of the Northwest to grow musically and develop these things that events like this we're hoping will grow, what do you think needs to happen?
I think it's all about the infrastructure, right? So, if you've got some people that start to put on gigs over here, and then you've got a load of artists that don't have anywhere to go to gigs, and then maybe you've got some producers over here that have just built a homemade studio, but they're waiting for the artists to work with. And so all of these people might not have connected, but they might be in a similar city. So it's about learning, you know, who is in this room, what skills do they have, and how do I connect with them so that we can work together and start creating a bit of an infrastructure between us. So I think that's where it's got to kind of come from. And things like this are perfect to do that, because you never know who's going to be in the room or what opportunities might come from that. The more things that happen like this, the bigger the kind of network can become, and the easier it is to connect with people. I would say it is really about that infrastructure. You know, as a label, we have various studios that we always tend to work with because we know how they work and what we can get from them. Similarly with videographers or photographers, like we have a list of contacts that we could call on for different artists, and slowly we've built that kind of infrastructure around the label so we know who to go to and everything like that. And I think that can happen in these places. It just kind of needs the people to be there to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking about the region, I mean, one thing that troubles my work greatly is that a lot of the artists that we would play on the program that I present, we have so many who move to Manchester or Liverpool or London or whatnot. Something we really struggle with. Speaking honestly, like, do you think people should like try to stay in their hometown, if you will, or is there nothing wrong with moving somewhere bigger?
Like, again, I think it is so individual, because now we've got such, you know, the internet's there. We've got access to TikTok. You can record and release from your bedroom at home, and you can market it from home. You can do everything from where you are. I think the benefits of moving to a city or getting connected with a city and building contacts within those cities is there does tend to be more of a live infrastructure. And for personally, with all of the artists that we work with, the live side is so important. If they can sell tickets, usually they can sell a lot of vinyl records or CDs, and it kind of all connects together. So I would say in some circumstances, you know, it is important to be connected to a city for those reasons, but equally as artists you can do a lot of it from home now, and you know, that's how in the recent years, that's how we've seen some of the biggest artists kind of be discovered from their bedroom at home. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can jump in. So one of the things that we've been working on, as I said, you know, each town in Lancashire, you know, is its own distinct place with you know, typically something particularly about its identity. You know, they're all a bit different. So, you know, if you actually look at the population of Lancashire, it's, you know, we're talking about 1.6, 1.7 million people. If we look at Manchester city centre, it's about 500,000, you know, that kind of thing. But actually, if you bring all of, you know, in Manchester city centre, it would be a more condensed infrastructure. So the venues are more obviously, you know, visible, and you have scenes and circuits.
They're all a lot more joined up, aren't they?
For sure. But if, you know, Lancashire actually has got a lot of infrastructure, a lot of venues, some amazing festivals. But what we're kind of working on at the moment is that succession route, that actually, you know, there's 80 open mic nights in Lancashire. These are the first 40 you do when you're cutting your teeth and you're just breaking into it. These next 40 are a bit more, you know, for when you've developed your skills and you've tested your material on audiences. And then when you're out in these places, there's promoters there who are looking for, you know, the sort of 3 or 4 bands to put on a lineup to do a ticketed gig, and then the succession route of becoming a headline, someone that, there's like a progression, isn't there, all the way to, our county's largest venues through the grassroots, like the Ferret or Cantina in Lancaster, or, to King George's Hall in Blackburn, with thousands capacities, or, Blackpool's got some great infrastructure as well. And, so it's about sort of working, and then festivals as well. We've got some amazing festivals. So I think that if we look at it, at the moment, it's a bit fragmented, but actually that we'll be able to signpost and go, actually, if you're at this stage of your journey, and that actually, we can do that in Lancashire. And of course, as Esme says, discovery can often happen from your own DIY stuff in your bedroom, and achieving visibility through that.
I'd like to get your thought on that, Rahman, if that's right. So at Stereo, you work with artists all over the world. So the local perspective is not necessarily one that you've got in terms of right here. But how, from your perspective, from your experience of working with artists in different places, you mentioned Asia when we spoke earlier. How important is that local network for someone, maybe not even necessarily an artist, someone who just wants to pursue a career in music of some sort? How important is building that network? Is it necessary, or is it just something that helps?
I think it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
I was speaking to someone earlier today who was saying they're a singer-songwriter, and they want to produce their first album, whatever it might be, an EP, an album, something like that. But the pressures to be an artist now, and the kinds of skills that you need, you're expected to be not only writing and performing your songs, but you are also expected to be a content creator and a graphic designer and a viral marketer. But if you can bring people around your project who you're friends with, who you trust, who maybe don't even necessarily want payment, they just want to work with you in those early days, it's vital to be able to get your project off the ground. If nothing else, just for advice on how to do things. How do I mix my track? How do I master? How am I going to put an artwork together, or a video, or what should I do about posting to social media? If you can surround yourself with people who understand those things as well, you build like an A-team of people around you that can help you get off the ground at the very least, until maybe such a time as you do get a manager or a label or whatever it is in terms of other infrastructure. But I think the same is true for artists all over the world now. I think we're so hyper-connected in that way. And thinking about the earlier point around Lancashire and some of the more rural communities, or perhaps some of the smaller, less huge cities, supporting that live infrastructure is absolutely critical, particularly for the grassroots music sets. So for the indie bands, the kids who are coming up and want to get their first shows, if they don't have places like the Ferret to go and play, or places like Gulliver's in Manchester, or Bootleg in Blackpool, there used to be a lot more venues actually in Blackpool when I was growing up that you used to be able to go and get a gig, but some of those opportunities are no longer there. So if we as music lovers don't go out and support those venues, and they're coming under a huge amount of pressure currently with the recent budget as well, it's a very difficult time to be a small independent venue, so go and support them.
Let's get you back into the discussion, Dan, because we haven't heard from you for quite a while. As I understand from a previous event we've been on together, before you worked at PRS, you were right in thinking you moved to London to be in a band. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So do you have any advice on building a community around yourself as an artist or someone in the music industry in order to progress yourself towards the career or the life as an artist that you want? It's fine if you don't.
No, not really.
That's okay. Do you, Esme? Because it sounds like you know quite a lot of people knocking around. So it's not as simple as just having a pint with people, is it? Like, what are the essentials to building that network around yourself to grow a community that can develop music together?
I guess it's surrounding yourself with like-minded people. I mean, it's similar to what you've just said of, people might not necessarily be interested in music, but if they have skills that you can all kind of utilize together to build, for a graphic designer to help you build your artwork, they're adding to their portfolio, and in return you're getting some artwork for your new release. So then you're all kind of growing and building your skills and coming up together as a bunch of creatives, essentially. I would say as well, with connecting with people, it's looking out for things like this. I know Sound City run a launch training program, which is where you can meet lots of different creatives and get lots of different advice from different panelists and things like that. Manchester as well, there's always all sorts of kind of festivals or networking events. It's going to gigs and seeing who's there. If you go to similar sort of small level gigs in Manchester, the likelihood is you'll end up bumping into the same people who are also going to similar gigs as you and have a similar taste in music. So it's just kind of being part of the scene in that sort of way of just going and enjoying it and seeing what happens, really. Not being afraid to put yourself out there as well, I think. And it's always quite daunting, but I think as soon as you've made that one connection that you could go to gigs with or whatever it might be, you've already started to build your network. Yeah.
Did you want to speak?
Yeah, there's I did quite a lot of sort of research on what made people successful, how people became successful. And one of the things they commonly said was, oh, well, I was in this place and I was lucky enough to meet this person, which I think sort of, what kind of Esme's saying or has said is, well, I suppose I'm saying it's not actually luck. If you go out, if you venture out, if you have initiative, if you do things, if you put yourself in certain places, it's like the likelihood massively increases. If you don't go anywhere and you don't involve yourself in these scenes and places, then you're probably not going to have that luck.
But I think you're always in the right place, then you'll always be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to meet someone or something, or and putting yourself out there. But I think the other thing is showing initiative as well. So one of the things that I've done throughout my whole career is had ideas, come up with a plan, delivered the ideas, and I think I could think of maybe a couple of things that didn't go maybe the way I would have liked to, but almost always they're successful. So there's this idea of there's someone mentioned Bootleg Social. Someone in here took the initiative to I'm going to hire the venue. I'm going to do a gig. I'm going to sell tickets, and made money. Things like that. That sort of initiative. And then the scale of those things can escalate. So, the harder I work, the luckier I get. The more I do, the more places I go to, the more people I meet. I've Dan mentioned, the people who, in the early days he would meet are now leaders of Spotify and stuff like that. People I've worked with are CEOs of major record labels. I think one other thing that I kind of wanted to say is Ramin's being quite humble here, because actually his label is, I would say, is very significant. Maybe not a major label, but sort of 50 million streams a day or whatever. That kind of thing is not insignificant. So and that takes initiative. It takes managing. It takes ideas and planning and moving with purpose, and looking at things like budgets and stuff like that, So it's amazing when you add to creativity these other dimensions. It's amazing what you can achieve, And I think the panel today, it's largely about people who have those optics, who facilitate and enable, and it'd be great, from my point of view. If today people had this sense that Actually, I'm going to manage I think at the start you probably have to manage yourself anyway, because how do you get people interested in you? You have to sort of assemble things and get some portfolio and move with purpose, and then you might have the opportunity to work with or collaborate with, you've done enough to get visibility for agents or agencies who can amplify that from that point. But so to sort of be more aware of the things I have to do to get myself to that point. And then maybe some people in this room go, actually, yeah, I am a musician or whatever. But do you know what? I think maybe I could be a manager, because it's that initiative that, enables you to capture value, and that means turning something, creative into something economically sustainable. And again, that is my thing. I think also the other thing is Ramin was or someone mentioned contracts.
Ramin.
Yeah, so they are. So actually, we have like the Lancashire Music Association. So if you're faced with something like you're unsure of in this county, you can come and find someone, have a discussion about it. In all likelihood, that whilst I have produced a book called The Present and Future of Music Law, I'm not a lawyer. I did that with a brilliant lawyer, that book, but actually it's probably worth a read, because the foreword is about somebody who's a really seminal musician who signed loads of contracts that he shouldn't have signed, and has regretted it ever since, But in all likelihood, the advice will be based on what you're being presented with. If you're looking at rights and assigning rights and so on, it will be get a lawyer, seek professional advice, and any decent company will support or enable that, for you to have the means to actually have that contract looked at. So, but again, we're speaking from the perspective of we do these things all the time. If you don't and you're just starting, you wouldn't know. But I think, there are mechanisms, in Lancashire's mechanisms in place, and, there's education programs and stuff like that, which have been sort of signposted. But, we're all in it together, aren't we? We're kind of, I'm motivated to see Lancashire thrive musically. Thanks, everyone. Will, thank you.